You love operating in the shadows. All right. Everything's on.
Talk to me, superstar.
All right. We're live, Alvin. Hi, and
Let's do
welcome
it.
to episode 27 of That Mortgage Show. It's April 26th. I can't believe it's almost May. Al, what do we got on the docket this week?
So, Ab, today we're going to cover interest rates, rate cut thoughts, buying a new construction home, President Biden's capital gains tax, and then we're going to bring in a special guest for everybody. So, chop it up with him.
Very special. I'm really excited. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. So, as always, the first segment that we get into is What's Your Rate? This week we're going to call it, What's Your Rate / market update. So, the resale market is struggling. Homeowners are hesitant to sell their houses because of the low interest rates that they have, the high interest rates that they would have to take when they become a buyer. This is just causing low inventory, which is pushing pricing up, making it hard for buyers. Also, President Biden passed a new didn't pass, but he's proposing a new capital gains tax, bumping that up, which would just further disincentivize people to sell their homes, which would most definitely take sellers out of the market, further contributing to historically low inventory problems, which is kind of plaguing the housing market. The weak resale market opens the window to new home builders to grab more of the market share, and that's just what they're doing. New home sales increased sharply last month to their fastest pace since September.
Yeah. So, as far as where we are with rates, average rate on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage increased about 11 basis points to a 5-month high. Unfortunately, landing at about 7.24% last week. Applications overall, no surprise, declined by about 2.7%, and refinancing saw a drop of about 5.6%, the largest drop since February, which obviously always happens when you have an increase in the interest rates. So no surprises there.
Yeah, so not to belabor the fact or be negative, but it's just kind of moving in the wrong direction, more of the same. Interest rates tick up, mortgage applications go down. Builders seem to be full steam ahead, although we are way behind as far as inventory is concerned. So I don't know how that's going to pan out, but we'll see. Yeah. Any recap, Al?
No, just hang on for dear life, right? The ship's still moving. We're taking on water, but the ship's still moving. Let's just keep it riding. Eventually, there's a light at the end of this tunnel. We're going to find it.
When it comes to lights at the end of the tunnel, or anything like that, I think we got the right guest coming at us. So we'll just a little tease. Our next segment is typically frequently asked questions, where we take a question from someone. And this week, though, we're just going to focus on a topic that is relevant to our market update. So new home sales. Since it's seeming that new home sales is the most viable way to get into the market right now, new builds, we might as well talk about it for a second. So first thing that I think people need to understand about new construction is there's levels to it, just like anything. So most commonly you have your full custom, your semi-custom, and your spec homes. Al, fully custom is typically going to be where you're buying the land, you're going out, you're finding an architect, you're taking your dream, explaining it to the architect, go get a builder, they build it, and you're paying them throughout the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So most
mortgage,
people get
what mortgage product typically?
It's a little bit of a lengthy process. Most people get construction. Oh, are you frozen? Can you hear me?
Where are you, Al? You all right, man?
A little bit choppy.
Yeah. Why don't you restart what you just said?
I lost you for a second. Yeah, you're a little. So most people get a construction to permanent loans for the custom home build. All right, today we're going to focus on semi-custom and spec homes. All right.
Yeah. So construction to permanent is a great program, but that would take a whole show to go over that. So yeah, let's focus on the semi-custom and spec, where it's really just like buying a resale. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's where you're going to be buying into typically a larger community where a developer is building these houses anyway, and when they're complete, then you're closing on them. The buyer is, or the builder is, funding the build. So on a semi-custom home, typically you're, you know, picking out your lot, you're picking out your model, and then you're picking out like high-level finishes like floors, cabinets, countertops. You don't have much say outside of that stuff, and even the stuff that you are picking, you're picking from a predetermined finite list that the builder has for you to pick from. So it's
Mm-hmm.
that, hence semi-custom. Uh, you know, think of your like Ryan Homes, Pulte Homes, Lennar Homes. Those are the type of builders that are doing this thing, and the type of builders that you're going to be buying from if you're
Yeah.
semi-custom.
Yeah. So, and your home buying process, right? It's going to start pre-build or very early in the process.
Yep.
Spec homes, you're most likely buying a finished product.
Yes,
Um,
that's the big difference, I would say, between the two. Well, one of the
right.
differences.
Limited to no say in anything, right?
Right.
So make you feel like you're making some decisions, but not necessarily the big decisions, just like the finishing touches. Again, most likely in a larger planned urban development, which is great if you like that new home smell, right? But you want it at a value, right? Or not
Hmm.
really to make any decisions or very few decisions. So
Yeah. So when you're buying in this capacity, the mortgage process, like I said, is much like buying, a resale, a home that a consumer is selling or a homeowner is selling on the market. It's much like that, in that there's a finished product, and you're buying it, you're financing it just typically at a closing. You're buying it straight from the builder. You're going to want to get pre-approved, just like any other
mm,
process, early. Find out what your budget is. Then you go find the house that fits your budget. You're definitely going to want to get have a buyer's agent helping you negotiate. Just because it's a builder, just because they have site agents or whatever, you're definitely going to want representation. The contract it can be more intensive, and especially if there's a build process. So even more of a reason to have a buyer's agent. And then you're going to want to make mortgage application at the time of going under contract, even if it's a year out. So that's the same too. You want to day one, you want to be under
yeah,
contract to have the wheels turning, even though you could be sitting on your hands for a year.
right. And yeah, now you may want to be prepared to make a larger deposit, right, at the time of contract acceptance.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. So builders are probably going to have their own stipulations when it comes to that, but it's definitely going to be more than your typical earnest money deposit. Sorry, go on.
sure. Yeah, yeah, it's great. Thanks for adding a little color. Know that some builders will require um, a larger down payment than is typically considered the minimum, right? And most important, with the extended close time, you have to be diligent for a longer period of time, right? And this really comes into play. You're going to want to be in constant contact with your loan officer. Obviously, you want somebody that's going to kind of update you throughout the process. As Adam said, it can get a little bit drawn out. You're going to be sitting on your hands, so you want to be in constant contact and be updated as far as what's going on, what you can expect in the next few steps of the process, and so forth. So, um,
Yeah. And then one thing to add to all that, to add to your last point about the extended contract, rate lock. So a lot of lenders out there offer long-term rate locks when it comes to
mhm.
buying something like this. But that's going to be a case by case. You're going to want to talk to a loan officer about the cost of the rate lock. If a lender is guaranteeing a rate for 6 months, it's going to come with a high cost because the lender doesn't know where rates are going. So they're guaranteeing an interest rate may or may not be available. So, just it's just a question that you're going to want to ask, something you're going to want to have in the back of your head, talk to somebody about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but obviously, this is a high level overview. This is 30,000 feet, right? We can get a little bit more in depth, reach out to Ab and I, obviously very familiar with the process. We can help you through it and answer any other questions that you have.
Yep. All right. So last segment before we bring in our esteemed guest is typically it's going to be our opinionated, where we're taking something from the news cycle and we're giving you our opinion about it. Getting a little bit out of our lane. So this week, there's been a lot going on. Big moves happening, particularly from our government. There was a spending bill passed last week where we won't touch that. But yesterday, Biden proposed the increase of capital gains tax to 44%. And I think that is something that we need to talk about because it does affect our industry. It does affect home sales. So how does capital gains pertain to us?
Yeah, so capital gains basically, the net profit you're going to get from the sale of your home. So, just to a rough idea, right, to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, more or less. You owe $250,000 on the house. You sell it for $350,000. Your capital gains would essentially be the $100,000, that net $100,000 profit, right? And obviously there's a little bit more nuance in that, but that essentially gives you an idea. Now, as it currently stands, right? You could. What's that?
I was just going to reiterate. So capital gains is your proceeds from selling your home.
Mm-hmm.
In this example. Yeah.
Blazed right through that, didn't I? Fast talker. Anyway, so as it currently stands, right, you can exclude a taxable income gain of up to $250,000, right? If you file single on your taxes, or up to $500,000 if you're married filing jointly, and you've owned the home as a primary residence for at least 2 of the last 5 years. Okay.
Yeah. So to reiterate, just say it in a different way, just to say exactly what you just said. If you've owned your primary residence, if it's a primary residence and you've lived in that residence for 2 of the last 5 years, you don't have to pay capital gains tax on $250,000 of your proceeds if you're single, or up to $500,000 if you're filing jointly. So same exact thing you just said, just reiterating it. If it were to be bumped up to 44%, let's go back to your $100,000 net proceeds. If you can exclude the proceeds, if you're paying capital gains at 44%, you sell a house, you get a check at closing for $100,000, you put it in your bank, tax season comes, you owe the federal government $44,000, essentially.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how that unfolds. I'm not really sure how that's a good thing for people, but I think we'll leave that up for discussion to other folks, and we'll just move on and bring in our guest. So, our guest, Al. He's a good man. He's a good man. He's somebody who I've connected with since my move to Florida. He is an entrepreneur. He's a restaurateur. He is Canadian. Bit of an outdoorsman. He's a craftsman, and he's a real estate agent. So let's bring him in. No further ado. Let's see who it is.
Troy.
My man.
There he is.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
What's up, dude? How's it going, buddy?
Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, we could have gone on a little bit longer. You're Troy, you're a bit of an onion. My friend, you got a lot of layers. All right.
Hopefully a different smell.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. Haven't met you in person, but I'm excited to find out. According to Ab, it's very similar. Very similar.
Yeah.
To onion, so
especially after a long kayak on the Loxahatchee River.
Yeah.
What a great way to spend your first time out together, out on the kayak. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, Troy and I were out on a kayak and came upon a big old gator, which was a little shocking. I, what did you think of that, Troy? Was it your first gator?
I saw a gator on a golf course one time that was from a relatively far distance that had just kind of poked its nose out of the water. So that was my only encounter before that. So when I saw this one on the banks, I was surprising. I wasn't really scared because I knew I had some muscle with me. So
Yeah.
we would have wrestled that thing for sure.
Yeah, right. He'd be a toothpick.
Al, I'd be a nice appetizer.
You'd be a nice appetizer.
You know, what's weird is like I've seen the gators in the lakes and stuff, but we were in its domain. Like
Yeah.
we were in its freaking we were trespassing on its backyard. So like
And
but it was so chill. It did not care about us or anyone.
I remember the last thing I said to you before you went was, "Don't get eaten by an alligator." You were like, "No, we're probably not gonna see any alligators." And sure enough, almost got eaten by an alligator.
So Troy, I've got a couple things that I want to bring up with since we have you, but is there anything that you wanted to add to what we went over in our introduction?
Yeah, it's really it's really great to hear that information because you kind of hear it in bits and pieces, and a lot of times it's the game of telephone, and people change it to their own perspective. But I really think that the housing market is, it's in trouble in some ways, but I also feel like there's opportunity with it. So I think when COVID hit, a lot of people were, in a situation where they couldn't, you couldn't travel. So they started making improvements to their houses, and interest rates were really low at that time. So instead of spending all that money and going on vacation, they were putting it into their homes, and then they would sell it. I think the other piece that's not really talked about very often, but and I think has a very strong influence on the market is the fact that many people are buying second, third, fourth properties to short-term rent.
Airbnb.
And I think that it's really inflated the rental market because now all of a sudden you've got this house that would have been rented out for say $1,500 to $1,700 a month, and this person can now turn around and make $3,000 to $4,000 a month and have a property manager and still cash flow, and they don't even need to be involved in the process. I think that is attributed to a lot of the increase in values on properties, and then also increasing the rent as well. I think we're not in a situation like we were in 2008. I think more and more people are coming here to make Florida their primary. A lot of the big companies are moving from out east and relocating a lot of their staff. But I do think there's going to be a major adjustment because, I was just looking, like the average house price in Florida, I believe in March went up to $420,000. So all of these baby boomers and people that are looking to retire, it puts them in a really difficult position because their retirement income is fixed, and they're looking to potentially relocate to Florida, which I feel middle class really supports a lot of Florida's economy.
Yeah.
So to see what's going to happen, and the interest rates, obviously that's a big thing as well. It'll be interesting. But the other thing too is the capital gains tax. That's being from Canada, we'd never been taxed on capital gains on a primary residence. So one thing I noticed you did say was if someone was to make 100,000 off the gain of their property, I believe it's the first 250,000
Right.
is tax free on the gain, and 500,000 for a couple.
Right. But you have to have occupied the property for 2 of the last 5 years. It has to be I mean, yeah.
But there's ways around it too. Like if you use it as an investment property and you're looking to avoid capital gains, then you just do a 1031 exchange into a new like kind property. So now you're deferring that tax almost like as if you're putting money into a 401k. You're basically putting it into an investment, and then you'd have to pay the taxes eventually, but generally at a lesser income at a later time.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's why one of your intro attributes was entrepreneur, because I mean, you know how to stick and move, my man. But and I want to stay on the entrepreneur thing real quick, because when you were one of the things you first mentioned was there's still an opportunity here, even though like housing inventory is low and interest rates are high and people aren't selling. So there's still an opportunity. So what opportunity do you see for those that are taking a chance in this market?
Yeah, there's always opportunities. I feel, people purchased properties during COVID, and now they're expecting COVID type numbers for rent. Which is they're not getting them. So at some point they're going to have to be able to, at some point I feel like there's going to be more properties that are going to hit the market, because the first thing you're going to do when there's a downturn and you need to liquidate, you're going to get rid of everything other than your primary residence. Right. So I think that's a good opportunity. I think there's some really interesting loan programs that are out there for first-time home buyers, and not necessarily linked to income in some ways. Like you can have, another property that you could pull equity from to be able to, put it into a different residence, if it's an investment, or, and I think you guys can share more on different loan products. But in the last couple of years, I've really explored a lot of the different options, and I think a lot of times people don't even go through the process because they think that they're not going to be able to get the funding that they want to go into that house. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's something that Adam and I try to stress to folks, is at least have the conversation, right, and see where you stand. There are so many programs that can help, regardless of the sort of situation, down payment assistance programs, first-time home buyer programs that, can help get you into a home. And if not, at least have a plan, right, for when you can, right? What do you need to do in order to get to that point? So
yeah, and that's a good point. Is instead of just waiting and sitting and being like, oh, my credit's too low, it's like you have to take control of that. So like, when I first moved here, I wasn't fundable, and I guess, let me correct myself. I was a foreign national. So everything I wanted to do is like a minimum 30% down, and I had zero credit. I had to fund my businesses, and I couldn't even get a credit card. But the first thing I did was start looking into, okay, how can I increase my credit? And I downloaded an app, Credit Karma, talking to bankers, talking to mortgage companies, and really just putting myself out there to figure out different unique ways to increase your credit, and just holding small balances on credit cards. Go to Home Depot, get a credit card, and points card. Like there's so many different ways that you can increase your credit. Which is a huge factor for most lenders,
Yeah, it's one of the biggest factors. So you've been through it at a pretty extensive in a pretty extensive way, being that you were a foreign national and here you are and self-employed, right? So there's another I don't want to say hurdle, but another caveat to it. But I think that all contributes probably to your ability to help people navigate the real estate market and navigate, the process. So can you just real quick, like, touch on your role as a leader in the restaurant business and in your self-employed business, and how that may contribute to now being a real estate agent?
Yeah. I don't know how quick I can do that, but
30 seconds, go.
I think it all comes down to, what experience do you have? Like, what sort of situations have you put yourself into, so that when you come to represent somebody for a transaction, whether it's building a home or purchasing a home, purchasing an investment property, buying something out of state, purchasing a business, all those kind of things I've experienced myself. So you'd want to make sure that you can go through and have a conversation to interview somebody that's going to represent you. If you're looking for a realtor and you want somebody that's going to give you all the attention that you're looking for them to be available all the time, then it may not be somebody that's been in the business for 30 years and has an extensive team. You may want somebody that's a little bit more, just out of college and really hungry, but also has like some sort of mentor, has good character. They follow through and actually do what they say that they're going to do. That's a big thing. Like,
I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
In anything.
Yeah. And you see that so much. And I think it's, in the construction industry, you see quite a bit, and you hear people all the time, like, this guy never calls me back. And that's one thing I really pride myself on. Like, if someone messages me or calls me, I'm very, like, I know that the speed at which I can react and communicate with them could be the difference between them getting that deal or not. Right. So
Cool.
I think that sense of urgency, and maybe that goes back to my days in athletics, and how I was brought up. But I think it's really important for you to be able to give someone a level of a service that you would expect yourself, right? So you're really you're really investing in that person that's representing you. So it's really important that you have those conversations and you have, speak to multiple people,
Yeah. So I knew you could do it. I knew you could give us a nice, concise answer.
Well, that was pretty long, but
I don't know.
That was just the intro.
I guess.
Now give us the meat and potatoes, Troy. Now really dig into it.
So what do you I don't want to like berate you, but I feel like you're pretty good at giving answers. So I'm going to ask you another question. All right.
All right.
So what's your market? Where do you call home as far as your real estate sales go? Mm-hmm. And what can you say about that specific spot as far as the health of the market, like what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think so. I'm located in Jupiter, which is in between Stewart and West Palm. So if you want, busy small town, you go up to Stewart. If you want busy city, you go to West Palm. And if you want crazy busy city, you jump on the Bright Line, and you can go north to Orlando, soon to Stewart, or south to Miami. So I feel like Jupiter is really this diamond, this precious place that is not overly populated, not too touristy. It takes some knowledge to be able to kind of navigate around Jupiter. You can't just, get off on a train stop and be like, okay, I'm going to go explore Jupiter with no knowledge. Mm-hmm. So I feel like there's a lot of
barrier of entry, kind of.
People who live here full time, but then also a lot who have secondary homes. They come here in season, and then the home is vacant, or they rent it off season while they're back. So there's not a lot of transient type traffic here. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to explore. Jonathan Dickinson Park, Riverbend, a lot of beautiful nature, the beaches. It's there's no commercial development along the beach. There's a lot of really amazing restaurants and golf courses, and
Yeah, I took
you know,
Al. Al was recently down here, and I took him to. You could remind me of the name, but it was right next to the square grouper.
Lucky Shuck.
Lucky Shuck. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
nice. We sat there at the bar, had a drink, watched the boats come in and out. It's like it's like the best place. You see the lighthouse is right behind you.
Yeah, and then Topside, that place is it's a lounge up above the beacon, so it's more for like you're going out, you're having a night out with friends, you go for dinner down at Lucky Shuck or the Beacon, and then you go up to Topside, and it's like this picturesque view from the second level that looks out onto the lighthouse. And even the Jupiter Lighthouse, I'd been to the grounds before just to kind of check it out real quick while I was doing a run. But we went to this Wild and Scenic Film Festival that was there a couple weeks ago, and it's just magnificent, like the banyan trees, and it looks like hundreds of 100-year-old trees with they do yoga there on Monday nights, and then they're building this huge boardwalk. We spoke with one of the volunteers who's kind of like spearheading this project, and they're putting a lot of money into building up the Riverwalk to connect with the new US 1 bridge, and it's going to go all the way around the Jupiter Lighthouse area. And then if you go over Cato's Bridge by Tequesta, going on to Jupiter Island, there's a beautiful spot there with like these incredible beaches right on the intercoastal, and running trails and walking trails. It's just, there's so many gems. I really love Jupiter.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and I get the opportunity to go down there from time to time. Offices in Stewart, live in St. Lucie, so like I don't always give it. It's the best. And the lighthouse, me and my two boys and wife have summited the lighthouse stairs 2 or 3 times. My wife did it pregnant once, so. It's awesome. I love those grounds. And Troy, like when you talk about development and stuff, I really think that you you laser focus, and you have the ability to meet your love of nature with your knowledge and love of development. And we saw that with Lost River Park or at Halpatioke. And your help there. So is that like a passion of yours, development? Is that where you see yourself falling as far as real estate goes? Is that what you'd like to do?
Yeah, definitely. I really like to be a part, and people say don't get emotionally attached to projects, but I feel like for the last 15 years, we've had a business that had such a massive impact on people's lives. And we were basically a conduit for people to come in and have conversations about their health journey and different things that they're doing or struggling with. And we were that sounding board to be able to communicate with them and really building a community. And I feel like there's, a lot of those values I'm trying to, and I can see myself getting into this full time, developing communities that have those principles embedded, community gardens, places to gather, places to, do fitness, and really setting up the community in a way for it to be very social, but not too invasive. If you want to retreat into your little cave, that's fine, but then go out and actually be in that community again, just the way things were in villages back in the day. I feel people are really craving connection more than ever, and we're so disconnected, but we think that we're connected with all the technology, and and I feel like it helps attribute to mental health, your physical health, and just having that sense of purpose and belonging to something that brings you up to your higher self.
Love that. I could not agree more. And it's something that's missing, especially in the younger generation. Nobody just the people underestimate the impact of going outside, taking your shoes off and walking barefoot in the grass, You know what I mean? Just the way it relieves the stress, getting some vitamin D in your life, right? So it's a
Yeah.
fantastic point.
Yeah.
In an
And it's
outdoor
simple. It's easy. You know, you don't have to pay anything for it. You know, that's
right,
one of the main reasons why we moved to Florida is just because like there's endless vitamin D and, you know, like you said, grounding. It's, you know, those ions that you're getting, the sun is really you know, it heals and it's, you know, it's proven and it's, you know, and I think over the years it's kind of been tainted in a way and I think
yeah,
people are really trying to take back that, you know, all the benefits of mother nature and what it provides and it's just easy and simple and, you know, going to the beach is more than just sitting there. There's a lot of, you know, things that come with that.
right,
Not to get too off topic, but for 100,000 years, 200,000 years of evolution, human beings lived a certain way. And the
yeah,
way that we currently live, is the weird way of life. If you just
right,
look at the span of humanity, the way that we currently live is an outlier. So, you know, but it's flipped on its head, because if you say, you know, I want to live in a village and walk around barefoot and, you know, go to the community center and pick cucumbers from our garden, people are like, "Oh, you hippie." You know, but no,
right,
no, I'm just relating to my what's built inside my body from
Yeah.
100 years of evolution.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's interesting because my wife and I were watching Outlander right now. We're just like hooked on it, and it's interesting because that era we can live that life now, except
Hmm.
without all the dangers of war and the things that they had to deal with back in the day. You know, um, there was a lot of fear around, you know, different tribes coming in, whether you're dealing with native tribes or just the whole civil unrest and the revolutions and all that stuff that
yeah,
were happening. And I think more and more you're seeing people homesteading and living in these little eco villages, and it's coming full circle. And, you know, I've been saying it for years, like the hippie era is really upon us again. And I think that people are starting to wake up and they're starting to realize that we have much more power than has been, you know, given to us, and you know, and to be able to thrive and survive in this new landscape where you have control of your food and you have control of the community that you're around. I feel like, you know, that's why you're seeing like in Costa Rica and all these different places, all these eco villages that are popping up. And I don't think it's a fad. I think
Right. I was gonna
it's
say,
gonna
you don't.
continue, you know.
It's
yeah,
it's more aligned with the you know, proper way of living, I believe. But
yeah.
so, all right, cool. Well, Al, you have anything for Troy? You got anything in your mind?
I was gonna get his thoughts on kind of how to navigate the market, like after July, now that the NAR settlement, and kind of how things are
Mm.
going to change. I mean, this is something that we can obviously talk about for probably an hour plus. We can do an entire show just about this. But I guess specifically, if we're going to touch on anything specifically, you mentioned earlier affordability for the first-time home buyer, or for the person that's looking to retire. How much do you think that this is going to affect affordability? I guess there's a couple of things I would like to get your thoughts on that. And then the folks out there that, since this came out, think that they can operate without an agent, right? They can go buy a home without an agent. And what would kind of be your advice or your thoughts on, why they shouldn't go that route, or what hazards await if they do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the NAR settlement, I feel, is really going to weed out a lot of you know, agents who are not acting on the best um, on behalf of the best interest of their clients. And, you know, in the past, the seller having to pay for both the buyer and seller commission, I still think that's going to end up happening. Like you're gonna have one house that's the exact same square footage that's for sale next to the neighbor, and the neighbor's offering to pay the buyer commission, and then the original house is not. Which house do you think they're gonna go after?
Right.
So I think the market always finds ways to work itself out. But I also feel like the NAR settlement's really going to help us sit down and have those conversations with our potential client, being a buyer in this case, and sit down and be like, okay, and this is what I can provide for you. This is what our company does. These are the services that I'm going to have, and really create an agreement from the get-go that says, regardless, this is how much my services cost. We may find houses that are going to offer to pay for those services, and we may find some where you're going to have to pay for it on the closing statement. So I'm going to give you a non-biased opinion of all of it, and then we can factor all those things in, and it'll work itself out.
Right.
Negotiations are constant, and some of these concessions that we'll make will include some of those, and it just gives us another bargaining tool to be able to work with our clients. So yeah, I don't know if I answered everything there, but
That was a fantastic answer.
Well, a good point you make is like it is also going to be another differentiator where an agent can pull away from the pack and provide a higher level service, because
Sure.
it's a little more. I mean, the more rules you get, the more convoluted things tend to get, and the more you need somebody. So it's like, I think it's quite the opposite of, well, now we don't need a buyer's agent. I think more than ever you need one.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that's the thing. At the end of the day, the seller's agent, if they're listing the house, regardless if they act as a transaction broker, like they're gonna have the best interest of the seller in mind.
Right.
You could seek an attorney to make sure that they look through the contract and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more that goes into than just what's written on the piece of paper. Like figuring out the utilities, working with different services that go along
Yeah.
with it.
Yep.
And then having the experience of many different homes that have been bought and sold, construction, going through the inspection process. Like the lawyer is not going to be there looking at that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Me as a buyer's agent, I'm going to be there with the inspector. I'm going to be talking to the appraiser. We're going to be, working through the whole process, and it's somebody that you can call at any point, pretty much all hours of the day, and whereas a lawyer is going to give you, they'll give you your feedback on what the contract looks like, but it's going to be limited, right? But we all work together. So having that, our title company that we work with, they're actually based in Stewart. They have the escrow agent is an actual attorney, so we have that service already provided as a special. No extra charge, but it gives you that ability to be able to have those conversations about the contract. I'll send stuff to them to be able to review the contract. I'll send my broker the information. So it's a big team of people that are working together on this.
Right. You're not just taking, my client wants a $400,000 2-bedroom house and their budget, and going on Zillow and unlocking a door. It's like,
Right.
that is the least of what you're doing, Yeah. So yeah, it will shake itself out. It will work itself out. I don't think it changes much of the need for a buyer's agent, but we're hitting the 45-minute mark. Troy, I know you're one of the busiest guys I know, with all the irons you have in the fire. Al, any closing thoughts on the show or with Troy?
No, just what a pleasure, Troy. What a pleasure. Hockey guy, food and bev, logistics, right? Real estate. Come on, man. Smells like an onion. I mean, I could go on for days talking
Al,
about you.
how do I get a sample of that beard? I want my beard to look like yours.
It's only because I operate in the shadows, as you can see, with the terrible lighting in my office.
Yeah.
And,
Is there
and
sunflower? Is it
and
Florida
no
grown
definition.
sunflower oil in there? Like, how do you get the sheen like that? It's just
all the
beautiful.
stuff that you're growing at the compound, right? You're an outdoorsman. Just go start picking some flowers and rubbing it on and see what. Sometimes you end up with a rash. Sometimes you end up with a nice sheen. It's just a 50-50.
It's trial and error,
Trial and error, baby. Trial and error.
Look at you two freaking Neanderthals growing beards like it's freaking 200 BC and you're living
Coming
in
from
caves.
Babyface over here. I've never seen Adam with a full beard, and I've known him for 28 years. So
yeah, no.
Yeah, I think Adam needs to grow some chops. He's got to grow some big old chops.
I would love him just to grow whatever he can.
Look like a new age wrestler. Yeah, there you go.
Whatever you can grow out, Adam, just grow it out.
The last time I cut my hair was because of a comment that Troy made. So maybe I'll cut it again.
Can't do it, buddy. You gotta keep going.
Don't cut it.
Gotta keep
maybe
it
grow a little. Maybe grow a little one of these guys.
Flavor Saver, the little
yeah.
There you go.
Hey man.
Yeah. I'll grow my hair out and I'll grow Flavor Saver and then I'll freaking join an alternative 90s grunge cover band.
That's perfect. I think that's fantastic. That's fitting.
All right. So I think a couple things are in order. We'll follow up, Troy. I'll stay in touch. Oh, Troy, I've been running a lot. So let's get out there. I want
tomorrow.
What time are you going out?
Dickinson. There's a kids run actually tomorrow. It starts at 10 a.m. I'm doing the 50K dunes run in Jonathan Dickinson Park.
Wait, tomorrow? That's tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, good luck. How long's 50K?
50 kilometers, 30 miles.
I know what the K stands for, dude. So 30 miles.
30.90.
I love this show.
You just like that was Troy's. I don't think Troy has a mean bone in his body, but
you set yourself
you
up.
stupid
Man,
Americans.
You're a marathoner too. God bless America, Troy.
He's not a marathoner. How dare you? He's a 50Ker. Get it right.
It's an ultra. It's an ultra. How dare you disrespect me?
Yeah.
So you have that tomorrow. You're gonna do that tomorrow.
Yeah, and we're actually we're one of the sponsors for Zen Coast. We're going to be offering up all the beverages for all the runners. That was the first event that I did last year as a vendor, and I was literally at the finish line handing endurance drinks to everybody as they're finishing out the race. So
what time do you think you'll be finishing?
This year I think my goal is to do it in 5 hours or less, so around noon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. Hey, I gotta jump. I gotta get to a appointment for my wife. Is like 8.5 months pregnant. This is our last appointment before.
Congrats.
The baby arrives. I appreciate it, man. So
yeah.
I got to get the appointment. Troy, such a pleasure, man. Really, such a pleasure. I look forward to coming down there.
Yeah, we'll have to hang out in the flesh.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm not gonna run 50K.
That's all right. We'll put you on like a side cart, like a little.
I love that.
Like one of those chariot strollers. Maybe we'll put you in there. We can run
That's perfect. Or we'll go canoeing or kayaking. But you just gotta tie a string to the back of the kayak. I'll sit in the tube in the back, and you guys
Canadian
around.
Do you guys know what portaging is?
I don't know what portaging is.
So it's when you canoe on the water to land, and then you pick up the canoe and you put it over your head and you walk across the land to the next body of water and then you place it in. That's the Canadian fun fact for the day.
Really?
Nice.
Portaging.
I can't wait.
And then you canoe to a remote place where you have no resources other than what you've brought in your bag and what's, available in the environment, and you stay out there for many nights with friends and fires, and you just camp out. It's fantastic.
That's amazing. I can't wait to try to work that in, whatever this doctor that
yeah, right when the baby's born, just go on a
work
portaging trip.
Somehow I'm going to work this into the conversation today with the doctor, with the OB.
All right, boys.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Al's got to go. Troy, thank you so much. Appreciate you, man. I'll hit you up. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Take
great.
care.
Have a great day. Later.
All right. See you guys.